Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, Medicate with Movement. As some of you know, unfortunately I lost my father in May, and with COVID, the grief process is completely different. And not everyone could attend. We had to keep the showing and the actual memorial service private and small for safety. But I know so many people loved my father, and so many of my clients, even though they didn't meet him, knew him and knew of him through me. And so I said that I would share a little bit about my dad, and to share the eulogy that I did for him. So many people spoke and so many wonderful stories were shared. I'll first tell you just a little bit about who my father was. He was Richard H. Orr Jr. He was born in Youngstown, Ohio on March 3rd, 1940, where he took his first breath in the hands of his parents, Charlotte and Richard Orr. He lived most of his life in Youngstown, Ohio, and graduated from Cheney in 1959. He did a brief stint with his family in West Virginia when his father took a job there. He also served in the U.S. Army for his country in the early 60s, and he boxed in the military. As a child, he liked to play cowboys and Indians, and he loved Hershey candy bars and continued with a candy craving. If I wanted candy, I always knew if I went to his shop, his workshop, or his car, I could sneak some candy there. But he aspired at one point to be a minister, and then he decided to settle on farming, where he ran a sheep farm, a Suffolk sheep farm. He had siblings, Robert Orr and Judith Merrifield, and Jeffrey Orr and Gregory Orr. He lost Jeffrey Orr to leukemia and Judith to a tragic accident, and he left behind his two siblings, Robert Orr and Gregory Orr, who are still alive today and great role models for me. As an adult, his hobbies were sailing. That's where I get my love of sailing, on the Flying Scot, Pymatuning Lake. He also did snow skiing and water skiing. My mom and him would snow ski in New York, and they would water ski on Lake Milton. My dad and I did canoe races, and there's one particular one that was always fun for me, the Mad Hatter, because my Nana, my mom's mom, would make us these fun hats that we would wear. He also rode in the rodeo when my mom first met him. He did the Broncos and the Bulls. And then I had mentioned the sheep farming. They had a registered Suffolk sheep farm, flock. And he also took my mom on long drives in Amish country, and they loved all things nature. So being on the sailboat and walking in the woods is where he felt closest to God. He worked at Andover Industries for 14 years, where he met the love of his life, Mary E. Garrick. And upon marriage, he went to General Electric for 14 years and worked in a bulb plant. When GE left their community, he then worked for Parker Hannifin until he retired at age 62. Richard H. Jr. died in Warren, Ohio, while receiving treatment at Trumbull Memorial Hospital on May 27, 2020, where he took his last breath, leaving behind his wife of 50 years, Mary E. Orr, his daughter, me, Kimberly Searl, and my spouse, his son Richard H. Orr and his life partner Jamie Bornes, and his grandchild Lexi Orr and Cooper Mosier, and her life partner Jeff Mosier. My father loved his family deeply. So here is my contribution to my dad, the eulogy that I read for him at his memorial. Dads are someone to look up to, someone to follow, someone to admire, someone to be proud of, and someone to brag about, someone to hold, someone to cry with, someone to learn from, someone to respect, someone to listen to, someone to talk to, someone to try and impress, sometimes rebel against, and someone most of all with whom to share everything this wonderful life has to offer. I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed that I can be here with you on this video today and tell you that I had all this and much more with my dad, Richard H. Jr. Worm. I have had the pleasure for 49 years to call this amazing man my dad. My father's memory, who passed away at 80 years old, may it be a blessing to you. He was an extraordinary man who acted like an ordinary one. There wasn't a pretentious bone in his body. My dad wore his heart on his sleeve as well, so do I. Forgive me if I need to take a pause or two as I progress. To say that I loved my dad would be an understatement, and to say that I'm going to miss him would be an even greater understatement. I stand here before you as one of the luckiest people in the world. How many times do you hear, "If only I told him," or "he was suffering so much"? Dad, I left nothing unsaid. We left nothing unsaid. For the last 5 years of his life, he was preparing me for this exact day. We had many conversations about his life, my life, our life, and death. He made sure that his family knew that he had lived a good life, one that he was at peace with, that he was proud of his children and the lives they had created for themselves. Dad was able to express his love through words and actions. He showed strength and love right up until the last days with us, riding his horse, working on farm equipment, walking in the woods. He lived life to the fullest. Dad helped me through every life cycle change I've gone through for the past 5 decades. Dad was there for everyone, family, neighbors, colleagues, or friends. He had come from Ohio to Michigan to help me set up my life there, to support me in a couple of DIY projects. He was a simple and clever man who was never afraid of having a laugh at his own expense. Dad was also there for Mom for 53 years of their life together. They shared everything life can offer together. They were a great team in their own right, supporting each other in every way. He was a grandfather for 23 years, and he loved every minute, right down to painted fingernails, to family dinners with his pregnant granddaughter and the hopes of his great grandchild, Cooper. Dad was hardworking and compassionate towards everyone. He taught me and my brother many things, but I think most importantly, he gave us the ability to know that if you really put your mind to something, anything is possible, and never to be afraid to give anything a go. My father was hardworking, strong, loving, and gentle. Every day my father put on his shoes before dawn and worked to provide for our family this beautiful homestead that had been in his family for so many years. Dad worked hard as he returned to the home long after the sun had gone down. I could count on one hand how many times my dad was sick, and I think the sickest that I ever saw my dad was when he lost his father. His mom was ill with cancer, and his plant moved, leaving him looking for a job in his midlife career. It was the most that I witnessed him to handle at once, and it brought him to his knees. He had shingles and depression. It was during this time that he refound his strength through volunteering at my elementary school, tutoring and reading and math. Dad gave many gifts of time. It's not the easiest gift to give either. There's nothing grand about it, no glory, no public acclaim. There's no plaque honoring Richard H. Orr Jr., who built a family and a community of loved ones through the loving gift of time. It's a gift that accumulates slowly over the years, taking shape through the steady gift of affirmation, devotion. Dad taught me that spending time and creating memories was the most precious gift, even more so than rubies. If you are lucky and devoted, as my father was, perhaps love can defy all odds and flow uphill. as it surely did from all of us towards my father. His attention to a hard day's work, the farm, it was infectious to him. And once in a while, it got him into trouble, as his hard work and curiosity at a gun show or even a good flea market would get him into trouble. Dad had many stories, many of which he never lived down, and I'm sure will be told for decades to come, long after his passing. Despite these odd foot-in-the-mouth moments, runaway cars, tractors stuck, or grenades going off, Dad was incredibly practical and creative, and I am so lucky that he passed on so much of his knowledge and skills to me, his son and granddaughter. He was an incredible father and grandfather, and patient to many. It is, of course, always possible to look back and remember those times when things didn't always go to plan. Like the time he sent my mother off in the family station wagon full of sheep to take to market. Nobody can be perfect, and he was no saint by any stretch of the imagination. As a child, I enjoyed it when his brothers or his friends would come over to the house or meet us at the lake for a quick sailing trip, because they would reminisce and tell stories about their youth and young adult shenanigans. And after they'd had a few beers, they'd forget who was in the room, and I'd hear the unedited versions of the stories. Here is where I learned new information about my dad. He had a wild side from when he was younger, and that he was an imperfect human being like us all. We could tell stories about him for hours, and I hope you do this often. Never be afraid to call up our family to share a memory. Dad's heart was full of stories. Dad's love was unconditional, and this is something I will cherish, his character, and take with him forever. His kindness and generosity will be remembered by all who had the pleasure of knowing him. I'd like to thank my brother and his family, for his siblings and their families, for all of my cousins. Your support really helped us get through this difficult time. I also want to ask that as you recall a memory of my father, please share it. I'm putting together a family book of photos of my father, along with all the wonderful memories that people have shared. This will come in handy to us during the holidays. So reach out and let us know, what was your best Richard story? You know, Richard loved you all very much, and he was so proud of all the wonderful achievements in life. I am humbled by my mom's strength these past few weeks, her ability to focus on the amazing life that she shared with my dad and not dwell on what she had lost. I hope that through this, her family can find strength from her example and be there for her as she needs us. I hope that one day when I die, people stand before you and tell funny stories about me, talk about the love I had for humanity and the adventurous memories that you created with me. I will then, like my father, have led a complete life. Dad, the day has finally come that you must travel separately from those who love you and who you loved fiercely. Well, I'm not regretting peeling more raw potatoes for you. Your laughter you gave us, and yes, the tears, will bring us warmth and strength. Dad, as always, you were too modest. Even people outside your home thought so. You were rather great. May you sail to heaven with flights of angels singing, and you to rest and be greeted by your family already there.